What's going on, everybody? Welcome back once again to the Crew First Culture podcast. This is a great day and an exciting day for me. This is not only episode number 200, which I can't even really tell you how far away from that I thought that this would ever reach. I didn't think it would ever make it out of my bathroom at episode 2 or 3, but super excited about that. And because of that, I wanted to share it with somebody or some people that were really special to me. So today I've got my good friends, Marc Maikoski and Tuna, Nate Gardner. So guys, how are you?
Good. How are you, brother?
Phenomenal. Yeah. Phenomenal. Great to see your face again. It's been minutes since we've had a chance to connect just due to life, but that's what I love about this brotherhood and this friendship, that it's not about connecting every day. It's connecting at the soul level. So thank you for reaching out and allowing us to join you.
Absolutely. And so couldn't think of a better topic to talk about during this conversation with these two guys than the topic of authenticity and vulnerability. And I know this is going to be something that is great conversation coming out of it, just with the emotional tie that I have with these two guys, and the emotional level of them is going to be something that I'm looking forward to. So just to jump out there and throw it out there and see what kind of rabbit holes we can go down. How about Marc, tell us what you think or how you perceive the difference between the two.
The difference between the two, I'm going to go straight back to our line of work and us as first responders. You can't BS a BSer. And just working in everything I have on the peer support side of things, and also with a lot of clinicians and mental health providers, there's a lot of commonalities between the two. And unless you show both authenticity and vulnerability, you're never going to get to the places you need to go to get to where you need to be. A good friend of mine, Jeff Orange, taught me, he said, you can never rob somebody of their rock bottom. So if we're there every time to enable them when things start to get bad, if we don't allow them to get super bad, where they hit that sentinel moment where they're going to change their lives. And I'm talking personally too. I'm not just talking outside. I'm talking inside and my own personal experiences. So until I hit those hard places, I'm not going to make the changes I need to change to become who I need to be. And that takes a lot of, number one, vulnerability, and for sure, authenticity.
What
Marc,
do you got?
Marc, do you want to answer the question or? Dude, that was the most roundabout shit I've ever heard, man. I'm going to go right back to the BS. We
was just going to skip by it, but
what the hell is that, dude?
I was about to call him out here in a little bit, but go ahead.
Well, as a future podcaster, I figured, you know what? I better intervene here because I'm really curious as to what the answer is, because I'm not sure what that was, but what is the difference? Because I have a pretty defined difference, so I want to hear yours.
You want to hear mine or Jeremy's?
No, yours, because you didn't answer the question.
I did answer the question. That was the most Marc answer I can ever come up with. How do you want me to start?
I'm going to take Tuna's side. You didn't answer the question.
Not even close, man.
I'm planting seeds. This is the prep.
That's not how this works, buddy. You're the interviewee, my friend. You are the interviewee. There's no plan. Listen, you're not going to Maikoski this shit. Listen, dial it in. Answer the question.
Okay.
Marky Appleseed over there.
Yeah.
Okay. So authenticity. Let's just go back to the human side of things. Once again, peer support. Who are our peers? It really depends on where we're at the time. So, to be authentic and care for somebody with true understanding and care for what they're going through, versus what our perception of what they're going through. So unless we let down the walls and have true empathy and caring for their side of things, we're not showing authenticity. vulnerability on the other side, I think that's the biggest thing we struggle with as first responders. I know I've put up walls, and I've personally in my life tried to be the person that I think others want me to be instead of who I really need to be. And that's been my biggest eye-opening experiences here lately with a lot of my journey, is to see my own self-worth. And that's the biggest thing I've had a hard time with, my own personal self-worth. And that's where the vulnerability comes in. That better? I still need to dive deeper.
Hey,
we're
go ahead. No, go ahead. I was just going to say, is this fan bother? Like, can you hear it?
No, but I appreciate you giving us a thumbs up. Yeah.
Yeah. Thumbs up. No fan. All right, good.
So since you called him out and put him on the carpet, what do you got to him? I expect big things then.
All right. So I think, dude, I'm going to tell you right now, here's big things right here, right? This is probably in a book somewhere, but I didn't read it. So there's a big difference between authenticity and vulnerability for me. Authenticity for me is more geared towards myself. Am I being authentic to myself? And being authentic to myself is one of our brothers that we've taught with before. He quoted this book, and I forgot what the book's called, but every single decision, every single part of your day boils down to, you can make an inwards move or an outwards move. Every decision. Outwards means going away from your moral set, what your belief system is. A towards move is, so let's just say, you guys know I like to play Xbox. So my kids are home and they want to go outside and play. I have a choice right there. I can just be a chooch and say, you know what, you guys go do whatever you want to do. Or I can get up and go be the dad that I'm supposed to be. That's the towards move. That's the right move. The away move is to push my kid away and say, I have some digital shit I need to do. I think we're all born with a certain moral compass. And for me to be authentic to myself, I have to go with my gut instinct and do what I feel is right. Vulnerability for me is what I show other people. That's a glimpse into my authenticity, is being vulnerable with them. Because if I'm already authentic, when I'm being vulnerable with somebody, I'm not doing it for show. I'm not doing it for any other reason than this is who I am. And this is what I can offer you as far as emotional support or whatever. But my brother and I had a great conversation. I won't go too deep into it, but I think every single person has, based off life experience and everything else, I think they truly have a bar of what it takes to get to before they will show any vulnerability. Prior to that, I think they have a hierarchy as far as what they consider vulnerability. People that are hardcore, that are non-communicative, just talking to their spouse, they consider being vulnerable. Just explaining their feelings, right? To me, that's first step. Like, how can you have a marriage or relationship if you're not telling her how you feel? Shit's not going to work out. So being vulnerable is like, hey, I'm upset because this guy at work did something, or he said this about me, or whatever. It doesn't even have to be about work. It could be about anything. Hey, I'm feeling really down right now. I'm not really sure why. Guys don't do that. Like, you don't hear guys go to another guy friend or even their wife and just go, hey, babe, I'm not sure. I'm in a funk right now. Have you noticed? Like, to me, that's vulnerability. When you put yourself out there and there is the clear risk of that either damaging you or damaging somebody else, I think that's where vulnerability is. I think that's the difference. I probably ran that out too far, but
no, that's good. Good. For me, just to throw mine in there too. I mean, it's obviously not any different than you all, but for me, it's presenting our whole self. We're not adding anything. We're not taking anything away. We are the true person we are. We're not presenting a fake front. We're not hiding things. It's authenticity is our whole self. Vulnerability, kind of like you said, Tuna, it's the action of opening ourselves up to be injured. I mean, being vulnerable is lowering our guard, our walls, our defenses, knowing that what we're about to say or do could very well lead to some type of pain for us. So I think that's pretty well lined up. And something else that I heard this morning from, and I listened to so much crap, I couldn't even tell you what it was from, but they said that authenticity is showing your scars, vulnerability is showing your wounds. Is that, you think that lines up pretty well?
Sorry, I'm writing it down. That was powerful. So,
yeah, I'll find who it came from and I'll let you know. But
Jay, can you say that again?
Authenticity is showing your scars. Vulnerability is showing your wounds. So, yeah, I mean, I'm like you, Mark. I heard it. And of course I didn't have time to sit and process it. So I think we will probably all spend a little time doing that afterwards. But I think there's a lot of truth to that. You know, the authenticity, kind of like we talked about, it's showing the scars of our life, the things that we aren't proud of. They're in our past, but still they made us who we are. And so bringing that to the table is just being our authentic self, and that vulnerability, saying that it's showing our wounds, means that they're here. They're not something of the past. It's something that you can very easily rewound or stick a finger or salt in it and it's going to freaking kill me.
Pull the scab off.
Showing it. Yeah. So I thought it was pretty, like you said, Mark, powerful.
Yeah. My biggest interception here lately has been set and setting. So when we share from both of those areas, there's a time to share on both of those and whatever your intention is. So like instead of stand in front of a classroom when we're teaching whatever we're teaching, if we teach with authenticity, we're sharing from those scars. So we've been through it. So we have the experience and life experience to say, hey, I've been through this. I'm on the other side of it. And you can share from that experience. But if we share with vulnerability in front of a training class or a classroom or a group, a lot of times that's not the point to share from that vulnerability side, because it's something that you're still processing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where that tribe and that friend group like we have here, that's what I love about our text message thread together, is like, hey guys, I'm sorry, I haven't talked to you in a while. I'm going through a lot of stuff right now. And all we have to do at that point is hold space. We don't have to give any kind of advice or tell you what to do or what you're going through. It's just like, I see you, I feel you, I'm here when you need me. And that's where that vulnerability piece comes in.
Yeah. Yeah. And for anybody out there listening or watching that hasn't caught the episodes with both these guys, I've done an episode with each of them. I haven't done anything together, but each episode with these guys, I really dig into why they're special and why they're special to me. And they are, of course, a part of the tactical resiliency training cadre that I am, and doing the 24-hour class. And I've spoke a lot about that on the podcast and how powerful, it is to sit there and see the vulnerability of these guys. That, I mean, it's a group of rough, strong guys, and to see them just lay it out there all raw to people that they don't even know, because they know it's the groundwork of everything that they're about to build on. It's awesome. And that's what drew me to these guys. And I've spoke on that a lot as well. It's that vulnerability that you all, especially you two, just threw out there when I came out and just visited, and nobody knew who I was, but I left there thinking that, man, I feel like I just got done meeting with friends that I've known for a long time. And so for me personally, these two things, man, I don't know that you can get two more important things than that. And that's it. That's just me speaking personally, but this is the kind of people that I want to be around. And hopefully this is the kind of person I am. And so that's why it's so important for me to kind of convey some of that stuff and to share, the power of that class and to share the power of what you guys are doing as well. And so what do you feel about, is there anything else kind of on that subject before we kind of move on?
Yeah, Jake, I would be highly remiss if I didn't shed some light on something that if you guys haven't seen it, I think I've sent it to both you guys. I interacted with this guy through the Red Guardian psychiatrist, and he's a retired lieutenant colonel. His name's Scott Mann. He's a former Green Beret, and we were talking, and he basically said, watch the TED Talk. So the TED Talk is it's basically almost a play, and the title of it is The Generosity of Scars. And the first time he said that, that scars have generosity, I thought about it for a second. I was like, in what capacity? And then he tells this absolutely gut-wrenching story, which I don't know if either one of you guys have been down that road like I have. But he tells a story about, after his last tour or whatever, he had decided it was over, and he was going to do it in the closet. And when he pulled the pistol to his head, the front door opened. It was his son coming home from school. And so obviously he said, what kind of father would do that? So he held off. And a couple of days later, he met one of the guys that he had served with, and the guy was just broken up and shattered. And he proceeded to tell him that story. And he said, I watched the color come back into his face, and he realized just through that normalization that, hey man, it doesn't matter how tough you are, where you come from, what your belief system is. When depression, PTSD, whatever your malady is, when it comes knocking, it can take down the best of us. And just through sharing that scar with him, that guy got on the right path, and he's doing great now. And that was just one of those illustrations. And I can tell you from personal experience that me sharing my story with people has dramatically and profoundly affected them and me. Just, we have bonds now that are just like Mark said. The beauty of the tribe is that I don't know if I call it holding space, but I just know that you guys are in the ether whenever I need you. It's like a speed dial, I guess I would call it, spiritual speed dial. I know that when things really go sideways, I have two dudes and my little brother that when it goes bad, I don't even worry now. Like, it's almost unfair because there isn't a problem now that I can't overcome, because I have you two guys, my little brother, 2 or 3 really solid dudes, Rick, George, and some other brothers that we teach with, that there really isn't anything that I feel could overpower me now. Yeah, I'll get down, I'll get in my funk or whatever, but knowing that there is a pipe hitting squad of dudes that can, in the drop of a hat, literally just blow their wall up and tell you things about themselves to make you feel as though there is nothing that you can't overcome. There is, I don't know if there's a way to quantify that, how lucky we are to have that. At least that's how I feel, knowing that no matter what happens, man, I got 5 or 6 brains and 10 eyes to look at it and help me. So it's not like I'm facing anything alone anymore. And that's powerful, man, at least for me.
Yeah. You got anything, Mark?
How can I follow that?
We're not doing this. We're not doing this because I'll never be able to follow you again. It's just who goes first. That's all it is.
Tuna speaks from experience, and he is every bit of what he just shared. And what we see in others, the power and the good things we see in others are the things that we actually have inside ourselves. And it's the same thing with the things that bother us, or the that we see we really detest in others. It's those same things we detest in ourselves. So it's actually holding up a mirror. And I know Tuna's been there for me. I was going through a tough time, and it was vacation time for his family, and he loaded them up, came up to North Georgia, and spent time with me on a freaking family vacation. And it was something I didn't know I needed at the time. And it's that kind of stuff that happens. I mean, it's Tuna traveling across the country during tornado season in Oklahoma. I mean, just that kind of stuff. I mean, it's real.
And all of this stuff that both of you have just talked about, every bit of it depends on the foundation of what we're talking about, the authenticity and the vulnerability. Nothing of any of these things that you said would exist if it wasn't for somebody, or in this case, thankfully, a group of somebody's being able to be comfortable with authenticity and vulnerability. And that speaks louder than anything that you could, read in a book or anything, because that's out of true life experience. And anybody listening, I know you can hear the emotion behind it, because it's real, and it has made a true impact on so many lives. And that's how, when I began to decide I was done dealing with everything alone, I kind of hit a moment that it was like, I just don't care anymore. I can't do it by myself anymore, and started opening myself up and letting people know what was really going on. I came to the conclusion that if I don't share this stuff, I went through all those things for nothing. There's nothing good that came out of it. But if I share the events that I struggle through, if I share the challenges and the obstacles that I faced, then it's going to find its way to somebody that needs to hear it. And it's going to help them through something that they need help to get through. And that right there makes those things that I went through well worth it. And so that's just something that I kind of came to the realization for myself. And I think it lines up pretty well with what you were saying, Tuna, that, it's giving, I'm trying to think of how I've heard somebody say it. It's giving our challenges a purpose, or a reason that they happen. And so that's something that I think I take really, really seriously. This is my story and nobody else has it. And I have to share that message, because there's somebody out there that needs to hear it. And that should be everybody's, because I'm not anything special. Everybody has their story, and everybody has something that is going to be impactful to somebody. But if you're not sharing it, if you're not opening yourself up, nobody gets that.
Yeah, I'm going to throw another word out there, and another quote. Compassion is another word that ties right into that authenticity and vulnerability side of things. And this quote says, "Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It is a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity." And that's from Pema Chadron is what that is. But that ties right into everything that you just said, Jeremy. Your authenticity, your vulnerability, sharing your story is going to open up the doors to connect with somebody that's going through their own dark times. I mean, we don't know the path that others are walking down. And unless we share, they're not going to connect with anything that we've gone through as well. So,
yeah, and I think, man, it's something that hit me as you were reading that, just a little tiny piece of it. But you said something about it's not and I can't remember the wording, but the healer and the healed, it's not that relationship. But not saying that that's not an important relationship. I mean, anybody that has an illness, we need to find a healer. But it's when we can find those people that are down at the level, not I guess that's not the right way. It's finding those people that know what it feels like to be in the hole that we're in, and they're down there with us. It's that empathy, I guess, is another word. It kind of goes with it. But that's when the really, really powerful changes happen. It's not finding a healer to heal whatever's wrong. It's finding those brothers and sisters that will get down in that hole with you and work through the problem with you, that things really happen.
this is the shit that I love so much, because I heard that a very different way. And I don't know if I'm just scars from being a medic for so long. I immediately went just medic, diabetic, medic, whatever. I'm looking at it in that situation. And it's a more holistic, your view is much, much more holistic in the sense of, and what got me when you were talking is the fact, that's why I always laugh when Rick calls it the land of misfit toys, because he basically tells you, you wouldn't be teaching for me unless you weren't fucked up. Like if you are not going through something or in the process of, he's like, I'm not bringing any happy-go-lucky dudes in here. They're not going to know what to do. And that, what you just said, it's not about, because how many people are out there? And I'm sure that the internet personalities have motivated quite a few people. They don't motivate me. You standing up on your soapbox, I know that whatever you're selling right now, which you will be selling, it's not free. That would also be something that would make it a little more authentic to me, is that whatever you're trying to give, make it be free. But if you're trying to tell me that these life hacks that you've cooked up and that you want to share with the world only come at $19.95 a month or whatever, for me, the authenticity's gone. Finding somebody who is currently either at or where I've been and is still going through it, like you said, that's us. That's TRT. That's our group. That's the three amigos. That's where I think the growth is, because that guy who's up at the top, I'll put it like this. If you are truly someone who has been damaged or has gone through something that is incredibly difficult to come back from, when you start making progress, it is in that transitional phase, at least for me personally, it's very dangerous to go back, because I haven't made my full transition. So you guys all know I went to the Center of Excellence, right? To unscrew up my brain. And even in that 12-week process, at week 8 or 9, when the new guys were coming through, I was not mentally strong enough to process or deal with their vicarious trauma and what they were dealing with and mine. So it's very, there's a very thin line there, because I found, as my brother and Rick and a bunch of other guys who've given me the advice over the years, because I started taking on guys to try to help them with their issues with PTSD and stuff. The reality was I was searching for an answer for myself. I figured if I help these guys, I did. I got a very appreciative feeling, I guess you would call it. Like there was acknowledgement of my help. And then there was the time where I asked Rick, I said, listen, am I doing this for the wrong reason? Am I doing this to heal myself or to genuinely try to help them? And he in true Rick George fashion, he comes up off the spur with this crazy thing about, listen, yeah, of course. Yes, you are. But the byproduct of that is helping them. And through that makes you feel better. There's nothing wrong with wanting to feel better, Tuna. You're in the transitional process as well. So he said, but be very careful, because you are not at the place where you can say, okay, I listened to your problem. I set it aside because I have my own stuff to do. I never got to that point. I carried all my brother's stuff with me to the point of creating problems with my family, because I was so worried about this other guy. And, when you have multiple nights where, in the morning, you're just hoping to God that guy answers the phone, because when you went to bed with him at 3:00 that morning, you didn't know if he was going to do it or not. So in those moments, man, helping others can hurt you as well. And that's something that I think that once we got to a certain point, now we can all freely share. And we've gotten past that first step. Somewhere there's a speed bump. And to roll back over it backwards, at least for me, is extremely dangerous. So showing empathy, vulnerability can be a double-edged sword. But I think the three of us have all just made the decision that screw that. It's worth it. Even if you affect one person, it's worth it.
You got anything to jump on, Mark?
Yeah, just kind of, I don't know why I went there or not, but I remember lot of times I have that imposter syndrome, and talking with both of you, I know you've had the same thing. So I remember seeing after the hurricane went through North Carolina, Tim Kennedy, love him, hate him, whatever, go down that conspiracy theory. But he talked about all these FEMA and PhD people and everything coming in to fix the problem. And then he talked about, I would rather have a couple of rednecks with chainsaws and four-wheelers over anybody with a PhD any day. Because they're ready to be there and work and do what needs to be done instead of sitting down in a room and coming up with all these plans. When it's time to work, it's time to work.
Yeah.
And that that's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. And to go back to where, your comment, Tuna, I think that was, I love hearing that. And I do want to kind of impress upon everybody that there is a balance. There's got to be a balance, especially when you are on that path of recovering or whatever it is. When you're trying to transition out of the bad to the good, however you want to describe it, you do need to be careful. I mean, yeah, it's great to be helpful, and yes, you can't help but feel good by serving others. There's just no way around it. When you serve others, it's going to make you feel good. It's going to help you. But like you said, there is only so much in your cup or whatever that you have to give before it starts getting dangerous again. And so that is something that you need to watch, because, it's people like you that just you're super concerned about other people above yourself. And so it's hard for you to say, no, I can't say no. He asked for somebody to talk to, or he asked for somebody to lean on. Well, what am I going to say? No. But sometimes we have to, it's not like we have to say no and just completely shut them out. Lead them somewhere else. Send them to a different resource and let them understand that, man, I want to be there for you, and I will be there for you when I'm in a better place. But I'm fighting these battles myself, and I don't think I'm in a good place to help us both survive. So I'm going to send you to so-and-so, and this is a great resource for you. But just to break that out of your mind that's a bad thing, because sometimes that's what we have to do to survive. And so I just want to say that, because I know there are a lot of people out there like you both. I mean, you're both people that are going to put others above yourselves to a fault. And as amazing as that is as a trait, it doesn't leave a lot of leeway for yourselves when you're low. And so people out there that are like that are, they're really empathetic people to others. It's okay to send somebody somewhere else. It's okay to maybe give resources out that are going to be helpful, instead of draining yourself to a point where you're in a really bad spot.
Yeah, 100%. I had a recent experience when I went away on a little retreat. I mean, Tuna talked about going to the Center of Excellence, and I went away to a little retreat on my own for some self-care. And there's power in the pilgrimage to go other places. Sometimes you need to get out of the environment and go where you need to go. But in the course of this retreat, there was a point where somebody else in the group was struggling, and I just kind of sat there and held space for him. And one of the people that was kind of facilitating and leading the retreat, he looked at me. He's like, dude, you're here to work on you. I got this guy. You go work on you. I got him. Don't worry. Everything's going to be all right when you come back. So don't worry about it. We got him. And that hit home for me super hard. So.
Yeah. You feel any of that, Nate? You got really quiet. I know you're probably processing some of it.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, Jay, when and I guess there was fuck it, let's do some vulnerability. So I would definitively say that there's definitely some imposter syndrome. And when you put yourself in a position that you're the one to go to, and then you're not, it's even more damaging. And it's even more difficult to, I'm reflecting because, I can, there's a couple of guys that I'll never forget, and I did exactly that. I spent hours looking up resources and stuff. And because I knew I was going to tell them for the first time ever that I was going to set up some boundaries and that this stuff was dramatically affecting my home life. And, that guy wasn't happy about it, and that made it even harder for me is that, I put myself there. And so, that was the hardest thing. And, I recently had one of my buddies, we had, 3 deputies get absolutely, crushed on the side of the road. And my buddy calls me up and he wants to talk about it. And for the first time ever, I said, listen, brother, I got a question for you. If this is you needing help, fire away. But if this is you and you're okay with this call and you just want to tell me about it because you think I'm interested, I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't need it, man.
Wow.
I knew the sergeant. It's just one of those things where it was like, and it was very powerful and probably the best. It couldn't have been a better person to say it to. And ironically, normally I wouldn't because he's one of my best friends in the world. But he looked at me and the response he gave me just solidifies why he's one of my best friends. He's like, you know how long I've been waiting for you to do that? This is like the first step, Tuna. Bro, I'm so goddamn happy. I'm so proud of you. And I was like, I was thinking he was going to be like, yeah, man, what are you being a B or a P? And I'm like, but he was like emphatically happy because I guess, what's really ironic is you sit and think about it right now. Maybe he didn't want to fucking relive the story again.
Yeah.
So maybe he was like, just because that's our nature. Hey man, I had a bad one. And whether subconsciously you wanting to vent about it or not, like he was like, oh, good. I didn't have to tell the story again. And it was like, do we have like kind of a duty to each other when we do tell it or we have? Because I asked him, I'm like, are you good with it? And he goes, bro, we kicked ass. As sad and atrocious it was, the only thing that's keeping me sane is that we performed amazing. And that was huge, man. And so I was like, all right, cool, man. I don't have to listen to these stories anymore because it serves no value. I listened to them all before for training because God forbid I learned something as a captain about that call that could save my guys later on. I could always justify abusing myself and torturing myself and listening to all those stories because under the guise imposter syndrome of it's for training. But when you're in that hole, man, you seems like you're gravitated towards it and you want to just keep digging deeper and deeper instead of going the other way. So yeah, no, that resonated with me quite a bit.
Well, that just goes back to what you said at the beginning. He knows now that he's got that phone a friend when he needs it.
Yeah. I'll share this real quick, but when you talk about that space, Mark, and I'm actually gravitating towards liking that a little bit more because there is a space that you can hold for somebody. I got a phone call at like 2:00 in the morning. This guy is obviously he's in crisis and he's like, can I come over? And I'm like, you know where I live? We got in the side by side. We went out to this management area. He had a 6-pack of beer. We sat, didn't say a word for about 2 hours, just getting crushed by mosquitoes. And he looked at me and he goes, hey, Cap, we're out of beer. And he folds up my tailgate and he turns to me and he goes, I don't know how I'll ever be able to thank you for this. And I thought, just sitting here in the dark. And he's like, knowing that there's someone that is there for you, no matter what, 3:00 in the morning, whatever. He said, I didn't need you to say anything. I just needed to know there was somebody who has weathered the same storm as I'm in right now. They've came out on the other side and that they're willing to sit with me. And that was probably one of the most impactful because it was just like Mark said, a lot of times people don't want to in that moment want to hear anything. They just need to know that you're truly there for them. And it changed a lot of the way that I interacted with guys, because the realization was, I don't think they're looking for some miraculous quote or whatever. They just want to, the catharsis of telling their story is just massive. So just being an ear sometimes is more powerful than putting the pressure on yourself to come up with some crazy quote or some impactful thing. Like Mark says, holding that space for them is very powerful, man. It's like an ace in the hole,
Yeah, and I think that's grounded in, once again, they knew who you are. They knew you were an authentic person that they could go to and not just get preached at or hear all these cliches that people that don't really care to spend the time to deal with are going to shoot at you. Just, he probably knew that you were going to be somebody that is able to just be there for him and not have any pressure or anything like that, because you didn't hide who you are. He knew who you were. And so that's pretty cool to hear things like that, because for people like us that we do want to be there for people, but sometimes it's like, my wife is dealing with kind of similar things right now, where she's not the best person for hard times to be there for somebody, and nothing against her, it's just against her personality. And she's got a friend that went through some really hard stuff, and she's told me several times she just doesn't know what to do. And that's the thing. It's like I think we try to tell ourselves that, oh, you've got to have the right thing to say, and you've got to be able to pull them out of this thing, and it's all on you. It's all your shoulders. And it's not. I mean, we don't have to do anything. Sometimes just be there like you were for him. And if something comes up and something touches your heart that you feel like is important to say, then okay, say it. But we don't have to put all this pressure on ourselves to be that, that awesome, perfect healer, because we're probably not. And by doing those things, we're probably going to make it worse, instead of just being true to who we are and just being still and listening to the feeling of what's going on between you, what they're feeling like, what they're acting like, what you're feeling, and just going with that.
Yeah. Can I add one thing to that, Jay?
Yeah.
So the duality of this is interesting, because in just understanding that space is what was needed is massive on the other side of the coin too, right? It takes all this pressure off of me, as far as like what you said, what to say, this, that, and the other thing. But when you truly flip it and you think, if I am the one that needs help, it kind of takes the stress off of me. If you have someone like that you can just go sit with, you don't have to relive the story again. There is no pressure to define why are you in. I guess that's what thing is hitting me so impactfully right now, is that because he didn't speak, I didn't speak.
Yeah.
So that line of communication never opened. And it was so powerful at the end of it to realize that you don't even have to relive it. You don't even have to talk about it. And so that kind of freed me up to get into some situations with you guys where I would just say a little bit and I'd let you guys go, knowing that I either one of two things can happen. What happened with me, where I just was quiet and we just enjoyed each other's company. And that was a powerful moment, obviously. And then the other aspect of that is that you can take the pressure off of both you guys, is that once you reach that plateau or that space in a relationship where you have somebody like that, free of judgment, free of anything later down the road being brought up, that's really powerful, to know that you don't even have to justify why you need to be in that space. just that they understand it. You wouldn't have called if you didn't have something going on. And I'm not going to dig. I'm your brother, and I'm here for you. And like Mark says, I will hold that space. I'll toe the line. And when you're ready, we'll talk. But sometimes you're in crisis and you're not even ready to talk. You haven't even processed it yourself. And I think that's a pretty pivotal time in an event as well, where you haven't even a lot of people like I have to deal with this myself. Okay. I'm not about that. I would rather, have one of you guys help me through it, because I'm getting different perspectives as well. And life is all about, the same tree can look different 10 feet, to the right or left. So, yeah.
You thinking anything, Mark?
No, I was thinking thinking how fortunate I am just to listen to both of you, just share knowledge. That's what it's about. I mean, this is about authenticity, and that's all this conversation is authenticity. For those of you in the space that listen to podcasts, I listen to a ton of them that are super planned out. This is purely an organic conversation that I get to have with you guys on a regular basis. So I'm blessed to have you in my tribe. So thank you for sharing your opinions and perspectives.
I guess you can't talk about authenticity and vulnerability without being authentic and vulnerable. So it's a good thing that we're okay with that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, just one of my favorite books is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. And it's kind of like a modern day Winnie the Pooh, but it's essentially a boy, a mole, a fox, and a horse going on these adventures together. And they're all kind of different, but they're essentially there holding the space. So it's I think on Apple TV, there's an animated series of it, or an animated short on it. I highly recommend it to anybody. So The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. He's got a Instagram account, but a lot of times just those simple messages like the ones you're sharing are in that. So it doesn't have to be those deep, dark books on The Body Keeps the Score or Brene Brown or anything like that. A lot of times just returning to simplicity in our childhood adventures are the things that bring us joy. So
I know you guys both have seen Bluey, right?
Yeah.
No.
Bro. Every day, every episode, it's like, that is such a brilliant message, man. Like, how? And they like heavy stuff they do very, very well in the show. And it's just like you said, I'm sitting there going, you really want to watch an animated short? And I'm over here judging you watching Bluey every day. But same thing, man. Powerful messages through something as simple and upbeat. And the funny thing about like the Bluey stuff is all those messages are powerful, but it's never like you said, like the Brene heavy. You're like, oh yeah. And you're kind of smiling while you're processing this heavy thing, because it's just everything's so positive, That is a good way to feed yourself. Yeah, 100%.
And that's like the book you shared, Jeremy, The Atlas of the Heart by Brene. It's just focusing on a couple words and their meanings and the perspectives just opens up your bandwidth. It opens up your perspective and your shutter speed and your aperture and everything else to what's really out there. So just having different perspectives of things is huge.
Well, and you bring up that book, and I don't know, have you ever read the book Tuna, Atlas of the Heart?
I've read a bunch of her books. I don't know if I've read that one.
I'll send a link or something to you so you know what it is. But that's the most powerful thing about that book is, I mean, it's a simple book. It's just talking about words and giving them meaning. But if you don't know the meaning of some of these things, it's so amazing once you start kind of veering out and learning about what anger means, what resentment truly means, and all these things that you think you would have a good idea about, but you start reading about all these feelings and things like that. It's like, man, that's pretty powerful to see that what I had always been interpreting as resentment was really just jealousy. And I never knew it, but that's the cool thing about that book. And, it leads kind of to me, something else that has been very huge for me is something that you introduced me to, Tuna, is the term moral injury. I mean, I still remember I don't know what the heck we were talking about, but I remember you were just talking to me about something and you kind of threw out the term moral injury and just kept going like everybody and their dog knew about it. And I stopped you. I'm like, hey, stop. Hold on. You said moral injury. What does that mean? And you sat there and defined it to me. And it's like, just hearing you kind of in your own way defining moral injury, it opened the door of my mind and my heart and said, this is what you are struggling with. This is what is impacting you right now. And you didn't even know, you didn't know it. You definitely didn't know that it was a real thing, but hearing that it existed and that it had a definition to it and truly applying that to my life, man, that was a turning point for me. Just hearing a definition of a word. And I think we all do ourselves a lot of good by digging into those things. You know, I guarantee you there's some people that probably couldn't tell you the difference between vulnerability and authenticity. Right? On the surface, if you don't truly look into it, they probably seem very similar, but there is a lot of nuance there, and knowing these things, man, it's a big deal.
Yeah, that moral injury piece is huge, Jeremy. I remember on one of your most recent episodes, you talked about being at a slower firehouse and doing lift assist, and you're okay with that because that's part of our job. Currently at my station, we have a elderly care facility that's right behind the firehouse, and we run more lift assist pick-me-up calls at that facility than all the other combined old folks homes in the territory. And the thing that all the guys are mad about, or that they show a lot of anger and emotions about, is not the fact that we have to go pick grandma up. It's that we show up and there's 3 staff members standing around grandma, not treating them like a human because of some policy as far as liability goes.
Yeah.
So it's not the fact that we got to pick grandma up. It's that they're paying thousands of dollars to being cared for and they're not cared for. So it's not the huge traumatic calls that affect us.
Yep.
It's the atrocities of not treating people like human beings that affects us, especially on the job. It's the visceral screams that stick with us. It's not the things we see. It's the family members that are suffering. It's that human side of things that affect us, of what we experience on the job.
Oh, absolutely. You have anything, Tuna, you're about to say?
Yeah, I was just about to ask you if you can cut me loose, man, because this is my jam. All right. Can you give me 2 minutes? Because I think that this is probably the most important thing that I've ever shared in the fire service with anybody. This is no joke. Okay.
You got it.
First off, we can define moral injury, right? It's a psychological or emotional distress that you experience when you're being forced to condone acts that go against your belief system, right? It's something that does not jive with your belief set. Okay. A quick analogy, Jeremy, your situation is probably one of the most easy and probably the clearest cut, most defined definitions of moral injury. You have a guy who has a podcast about putting their crew first, teaches about it nationally, right? And then you are the one that's attacked in a sense of the fact that your leadership was poor, this, that, and the other thing, right? What is there any way to stab you in the heart worse than that? You personally? No, right?
No.
Okay. So
not career-wise, for sure.
And that's kind of what we're talking about here, right? Career. You're not. I don't think that moral insult or injury. When we're outside of work, nobody's going to force me to do something I don't want to do.
Yeah.
But at work, when that paycheck hinges on that, i.e., vaccinations, all this other stuff. I mean, people are literally made to do unconstitutional things to keep their paycheck. But so, I wish there was a way I could put this on the screen. But so, I wrestled forever with the fact that everybody's telling me that I have PTSD. There's a very profound stigma in the fire service with PTSD. It's getting a little better now, but I had symptoms, right? And what do we do for everybody? We get an altered mental status. What are we doing? we're going to do a differential diagnosis, right? We're going to look at the symptoms. What are the symptoms of this that they think they have? And we'll denote at what point, or we'll decide what their actual ailment is, right? So here we go. So if you guys can picture, there's two circles, but they connect in the middle. They overlap, right? So there's a sliver in the middle that they both have, that they share. There's a shared space in between, right? So I'm going to go down the PTSD symptoms, okay? Exposure to actual or potentially injurious and or life-threatening event, fear, horror, paranoia, flashbacks, hypervigilance, startle reflexes, and memory loss, okay? Moral injury. Exposure to an event which transgresses one's moral beliefs, grief, shame, regret, alienation, and anami, which is a collapse of personal standards and values, right? So those are the two that are very, if you set with those set of symptoms, pretty clear PTSD, right? The other one, moral injury. Do you know where it gets really, really crazy? Is the shared space that both of these mental, not disabilities, these mental conditions have, right? Do any of these sound familiar? Depression, anxiety, substance abuse, insomnia, anger, nightmares, and suicidality. If your fucking hair isn't standing up on your arms right now, if you don't do your due diligence, tell me that those 6 or 7 right there isn't what we immediately define as PTSD.
Yeah.
So just like when you take somebody who's having a moral crisis or a mental crisis and you put them in a drunk facility where they just rip off the scab of your psych issues and you try to tell them, hey, listen, I drink because I have this ailment. I don't have this ailment because I drink. This is a self-medication for me. So putting me in a facility, other than the detox, right? You get all the whatever out of your system. Past that, what are you? I'm not an alcoholic. I don't have addiction issues. I might have a chemical addiction at this point because I've drank so much, but it's not because I like drinking. I'm doing it to numb the pain of the last shift, the last week, the last cardiac arrest, the last pediatric fatality. The sum is the end of the freaking equation. The equation is that you are being exposed to highly traumatic stuff. But on the flip side, how many times have you been on call where the lieutenant or somebody else who we got promoted, they got promoted for whatever reason, you don't feel safe in their leadership ability, and then they start doing things that endanger you? That is moral insult. That is moral injury. You know better. And what makes it worse is the whole deal with what we have with administration, right? Now, anybody can be a fireman. Anybody can be a captain. Anybody can be a chief. So when you're that guy that grinds and grinds and grinds and that does all the right things, but you're not the guy that takes the Adderall and studies 12 hours a day prior to the test, when that guy gets promoted and, we'll go back, and your promotional process is absolute junk, right? Over and over throughout that entire process, you are suffering moral insult the entire time. While you're studying for the test, you're going, none of this is relevant to what being a good officer is about. You gave us 2,700 pages for a 100 question test. Why would you do that? What's the point? Are you just trying to get people that memorize? Because memorization doesn't help you as a captain on scene under duress. So all of those things are all adding up in this moral insult, moral injury pile that we're not even taking account of. And you're right. I just assumed that everybody knew this, because to me, it's one of the most powerful things that I've learned in the entire fire service is that, I don't want to go talk to somebody if I have PTSD because people are going to think this. But if you're upset and frustrated with the system, the administration, the inability to promote, blah, 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 that has the same exact side effects as PTSD. It's something that has to be addressed. It's something that has to be put in the forefront. I'm still in the process of putting a class together on it because I think it's that important for people to understand when they're sitting there going, why am I so goddamn mad? I'm at a retirement station. We don't do anything. I haven't had a traumatic call in 6 years. Why am I so angry? Why can't I sleep? There you go. Guarantee if you dig into the definition of moral injury, you probably have experienced quite a few of those, and that's what you're ailing from. Sorry to go off the rails. I just think it's so damn important, man.
No, I totally agree with you. I'm right there with you. I think that there needs to be a conversation shift, at least in the fire service. I can't speak for any other service because I'm not a part of it, but I know that the fire service needs to be focusing way more on moral injury than PTSD. I'm not discounting a PTSD. I'm not saying it's invalid or doesn't exist. I'm saying we struggle more with moral injury than PTSD. There's no way around it. I truly believe that. And to start that conversation and to I've got a few classes that deal with these type of things, and every one of them I'll ask the people there if they know what that means. And I guarantee you I've never had more than, one or two hands go up, if any. So there's a lot of people that don't know what that means for sure.
Yeah. And Jay, what's really important about understanding that is that stereotypically most of us that got into the fire service, we knew what we were getting into. We knew there was going to be trauma. We knew you're never going to truly understand until you start getting the calls. But I want to make a note here, and this will probably create some divide, but I would be willing to venture that the highest level of moral insult, moral injury are training guys that take the job seriously. You're not going to see a lot of people that are here for whatever you want to call it, in a paycheck. This is their second job. This is exactly who I'm talking about. This job is either, your soul or it's not. And the people that it's not, moral insult, moral injury don't really impact them anywhere near as much. But if you are the guy whose career motto is leave it better than I found it, you're going to get morally injured quite a bit, because that's not the absolute goal. Like Mark said, dude, the fact that we have a ladder truck running 6 lift assists in a night is absolute lunacy. It's an absolute waste of resources. And you, as a captain or a lieutenant or whatever, you spent 25 years to get the seniority to get on this ladder truck so you don't have to run medical calls and you can do the stuff that you're passionate about. And then what do you do all night? You run falls. And people are, we always forget too. The public, we're not the most respected like we were 15 years ago. So on top of having to worry about, who's washing their clothes with yours and not sleeping for 24 hours and not getting to eat, now you're dealing with people not respecting us as well on scene. Another aspect of moral injury, because you came into this job, people honk, everybody's waving on the corner, and now you show up on scene and people are telling you to F off. It's the heroin epidemic. That wasn't PTSD. There was a lot of moral insult, moral injury across the board in the fire service because of the heroin epidemic, because you're being forced to go out and give this same guy, Narcan 6 times in a shift. And you're going, what are we doing? I'm done. Sorry.
That's good. Mark?
No, I echo everything that you guys have both talked about at this point. I mean, I see the fire service there. It is not what it was not even 10 years ago. We're running more calls, and it can be a shift schedule thing, but changing for the sake of change is an improvement, is an advancement. Movement doesn't necessarily necessitate forward action. So it's not that as firefighters, we don't like change. We do like change if there's the right reason and the right messaging behind it. But change for the sake of change, it's not the answer. And I'm with Tuna. The guys that are passionate are the ones that are going to feel it the most. And you can only take on so many special projects and get told so many times before you're like, all right, I got 3 years left. I got 5 years left. I'm not counting down the days. I'm going to show up to work. I'm going to do my job to the very best of my ability, but I'm not taking anything extra on anymore. That's for the new guys. And the new guys with this, you can talk generations and the newer kids and how they process things and their focus and everything. If it's not a good place to be, they're not going to stick around and help with that change, that progress. They're going to go somewhere else where they can find it. So it's Pandora's box. It's a huge discussion on so many levels. And it's not, I know we've talked about it in the past, the perceived organizational support, the POS is another huge aspect of it. It's not necessarily the support that our agencies are giving us. It's how we perceive that support. So we're big on looking at the grass is greener. This place is doing it right. This place is doing it right. But unless we change what's going on in our direct environment that we can inherently affect where we're at, we're never going to be happy. So we need to focus on the things that we can change, and that's us and our perspective on those things.
Just to add something so that the people out there that are listening can, if you're at the station and you have a 4-year guy who is like, he's over the job, you should not be over the job at 4 years, right? I have guys that are literally stopped. We would have kids show up and they'd be literally every piece of forcible entry equipment, polished, shined, sharpened, everything. And we would literally have captains beat them down and go, what are you doing that for? It's stupid. Over and over, little incidences like that. And you have 3-4 year guys that are the ones that we are praying to hire. The guys that in that time when they can let the job consume them because they don't have kids. I mean, that's the life cycle, right? You get hired. Hopefully when you're younger, you don't have responsibilities and you literally make this job your soul. It is your life. You're super passionate about it. To see guys with 3 and 4 years on, done, not taking extra assignments, not joining training, that's moral insult. That's moral injury. They've been browbeat down to the point where the fire service is not what it was, and they do not feel like they can excel anymore. It's like they're being held down because they're traditional or they're high speed or they're the squeaky wheel. No, they want to do things right. So yeah, that's you see guys under 10 years on that aren't running, 35 calls a shift on the box and they're burned out. That's literally moral insult, moral injury. And you're seeing it across the board. I mean, I have young guys that call me up and they're like, what do I do? And it's like, that's actually happening right now. The fact that, even 5 years ago when I retired, that would not be happening. But these guys are having to deal with the craziest stuff now. So they're getting burned out early. I mean, like you don't get burned out under 10, 15, 20 years. It's not PTSD. It's moral injury.
Yeah, obviously we do. I don't think we plan on kind of going down this rabbit hole, but I mean, since we're here, it does bring up something that, man, I've really struggled with here lately is how to address and how to feel and how to help the situation that the fire service seems to be in right now. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time on social media. I've just started back again after almost a year away from it. And I don't enjoy it. I see, hate going in every direction. It's it's administration versus suppression. It's the silver badges versus the gold badges. It's the hard chargers versus the slugs, whatever you want to call it. There's everything seems to be divided, and that alone beats me down. Just seeing that and seeing how it's all dealt with negativity. It's always finger pointing and name calling the other side, and nobody seems to be throwing out any real good solid suggestions of how to fix it. And so, not that what I'm about to say is that answer, but I feel like the only thing that I have been able to wrap my head around is kind of like you mentioned, Mark. The only thing I can do is just make my little circle better. That's it. I can't go on the internet and, have everybody sign a peace treaty and everybody gets along. I can't even go to my own department and fix a few things that need to be fixed there, or even my own shift. And so really all I can do is, at this point, at the level I'm at, honestly, all I can do is just keep my eyes open and look for opportunities to have some type of positive impact on somebody. That's it. I'm in an informal leadership role right now, which is great. I enjoy it, but I have no say so. I have no authority. I have nothing like that. And that's fine. But it just shows you that the people at any level that are struggling with what to do, you have to work with what you got. I mean, for me, if it's just taking the positive attitudes of the firefighters that I have on my crew and maintaining that and taking advantage of their willingness to train and things like that, that's amazing. That's something that I have to see as a blessing and I have to take advantage of. That might be the ceiling of what I get to do, but still I have to focus on that because that's what I have. I can't allow myself to get frustrated because we have this nozzle or our truck is this model and it's stupid or anything. It means nothing. It just is wasting all my energy and all my emotional, well-being. And so that's my only answer right now is just ignore all the crap and try to keep focusing on the areas that I can control. And so I don't know, man. It is troubling for me to see the state of the fire service as a whole, and I don't understand how it's so widespread. But it just seems like it's a common theme from coast to coast. It doesn't matter where you're from, you're facing similar stuff, and it's crazy.
That's powerful right there, and to kind of focus on what you said. Control the things that you can control. Capitalize on those little quick moments. I mean, since my retreat, I've come back and at the dinner table at the firehouse, I got everybody going around the table and doing a simple gratitude practice. It's something that I learned on my retreat. Tell me 3 things today that you are grateful for. And of course, it's the eye roll moment. And some people throw those Sunday school answers out there, the ones you always want to just hear. But it may be that one person that actually had something good happen to them that day that they share, just that little 2-5-minute practice of everyone going around the table instead of busting each other's chops, sharing what they're thankful for. I get a lot of eye rolls, but you know what? It's meant a ton to me to have my guys, number 1, humor me around the dinner table and do it. But number 2, to be able to share the things that are positive in my life, that my perspective change. So just that little moment to share a little bit of vulnerability and authenticity to bring it back around has been huge, I think, at our firehouse. And we've had a lot of guys float in these past couple of days, and they're like, "Oh, we're doing this?" Like, yeah, we're doing it. I mean, it's kind of like the yoga thing when I brought it back. Yeah, we're doing this. And then they see the value of it. So those quick little moments or happy little accidents, as Bob Ross used to call them with a tree. Oh, look, there's a tree. If we can capitalize on those happy little accidents and make them positivity by one little step at a time, we can help effectuate that change. So,
no.
Well, I mean, you guys have all had that one guy, right? It takes one dude that's just supremely negative to just literally destroy the fabric of positivity in a fire station. Just one guy out of 6. You flip that, and if your goal is to create just those small moments of positivity, the drop in that bucket, you don't know how far that ripple goes. Like, just those, I choose right now. One of my rules was no talking shit about other guys, unless you've offered them help. That was just one of my big things. I don't want to hear you. Listen, there's plenty of other things we can talk about other than you browbeating another fireman. So, and especially if you don't know his story or what he's going through, But just that little change of stopping talking crap about each other was massive, because we did it. You don't realize how much we do that. And that has a dramatic effect, whether you know it or not. It creates basically a feeling around the station of, like you said, dude, we were at the stations where we'd have the neighboring stations, their decal on our urinal cakes. We put our first stew shit in their urinals, and we were that way. We would race guys into their own zone, not even in our zone, because it was about being able to. Later on in my career was, in the beginning, I don't even think we had pagers, but later on in the career was like the memes. If I got beat to a fire in my zone before I got there, I would be getting memes on my phone. I'm like, how are you responding to a call, creating memes? Like, so that's not positive. It's not healthy, man. And just choosing to do that gratitude thing, man. That's a big thing. It's a big thing, man. It's one of the first steps, I think, is in changing our culture, is just trying to get people to worry about their own stuff. Because everybody knows when you're talking shit about somebody else, you're just deflecting. There's something that you got going on. It's just a diversionary tactic anyways. So, and there's zero worth in it. You don't feel any better. And potentially you can tear down someone's career, because firemen love good story. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think kind of, Mark, you kind of brought the authenticity and vulnerability back around, kind of circling back where we started. And I want to touch on something else before we close up, in the same vein as something I've heard a long time ago, is authenticity has no competition. And the reason I want to bring that up is because it leads into something else that we've touched on a few times and not really went into, but I think it's something else that's important to discuss with this group, is the imposter syndrome. Like you said, all three of us have dealt with it, man. I think it's probably something that I probably deal with more than anything else. And it's all revolving around what we're doing right here. Everything that I'm involved with away from the firehouse, I feel like it's tied to some of this stuff. I feel like I'm not a person that I love supporting other people doing the same thing I'm doing. I mean, I couldn't even tell you how many fire service centered podcasts there are nowadays. It's crazy, but I try to support, at least the people that, I'm like mission with, I guess, as much as I can. So I'm not somebody that is just super, super jealous of this and that, but man, I do find myself constantly thinking, I'm obviously out of my realm, because I am nowhere near so-and-so, or, I just I can't figure out how all these people are doing this, and I can't, I hate it. I hate it so much, because for one, I don't want to be that person. Absolutely. I don't want to be that person. And for two, I hate that feeling that it gives me. And then, so what grounds me, what I have to continue to go back, bring myself back to, is that statement that authenticity has no competition. And I'm not Jocko. I am not, in Prince, any of a million names. I am myself. And the conversation we're having right now, that's my thing. I am trying to give this blessing and this message to people out there. And that's who I am. And that's the message that I have to give. And I just have to continue to tell myself that's okay. I'm not going to be somebody I'm not. I'm not going to do things that compromise my integrity or what I feel is authentic to myself. And so, that being said, I have nobody that is competing with me. It's just me sharing the message I've been given. And if 100 people hear it, that's great. If 1,000 people hear it, that's even better. But I have no control over that. All I have control over, again, is just sharing what I have to share. And so for me, that's what kind of anchors me back into hopefully reality and hopefully getting away from some of that imposter syndrome. What do you guys have anything that has kind of helped you since you both said that you struggle with it?
For me, Jeremy, not to blow smoke up your butt just because you're the podcast host. That's what I love most about Crew First Culture podcast is your raw episode and your conversations with yourself to put out episodes of what you're thinking and feeling in your head as you're driving to work. That's you exemplify the authenticity and the vulnerability right there just by the nature of the way that you record your episodes. To hear that truck talk on the way into work in the morning is phenomenal. And thank you for showing that example. I've done a lot of self-awareness and journey into some pretty deep, dark places inside of me to find the light the other side. Journaling has been huge for me. I'll pick one page in my journal and that's all I give it. And it's just, there I go. I'm trying to remove the word just from my vocabulary because
minimizing it.
Yeah, because it minimalizes everything that you do. So that's been a conscious part of who I am, to remove the word just from my vocabulary. So I journal 1 page a day. Try to do
just one page.
Yeah, just one
just
page.
One page.
Just stop,
one page. It works in that context. So leave me alone, Tuna.
You got it. I'll just
only
be
one page,
over here.
Simply one page in my journal of what I'm feeling, and I write it down. And when I get to the end of the page, I used to write, "Be here now." We're all very familiar with that phrase, and the end. And I've changed that terminology at the end of the page now, and I write, "The journey continues," because that's how I'm feeling now, right now. That doesn't mean that's how I'm going to feel tomorrow, or that's how I'm going to feel for the full day. I remember going into work the other day, and I woke up, I had a dream about work. I was in a bad space in my head, and I was like, work's going to suck today. Today's shift's going to suck. And I made a conscious effort into changing my mental state. And by dinner time, I was in a great place and focused on those gratitude things to help turn around where I was. So it's not having that imposter syndrome. That's what I feel right now. But like you said, what are the things I do good? What is my genre? What is my subject matter that I'm going to focus on and try to do the best I absolutely can in that area? So that's the focus where I've been, that self-awareness. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm feeling. I don't have to stay here. What am I going to do to change it?
Good. What do you do, Nate?
Well, first off, I want to address the idea of imposter syndrome and the fact that I think one of the shared traits that the three of us have is that we're pretty freaking hard on ourselves. We set pretty high expectations for ourselves. One of the other things that is human beings have an affinity for is comparing ourselves. I learned in the most visceral way at the Center of Excellence that comparing your trauma to somebody else's is absolutely the most flawed way in the world to look, because whatever's affecting you is affecting you. Whether you were born with an innate ability to process stress, maybe the same thing that bothers me doesn't affect you. But ironically, the same reason why something might not affect me and affect somebody else is based off our life experiences. You want to tie it all back into authenticity. Let's address self-loathing, self-deprecating talk, right? Because there's a lot of that involved in imposter syndrome, because you're speaking about something that somebody else is speaking about, yet they have a PhD in this, right? What in the fucking world makes them more not certified? What makes them more qualified to talk about it than you? You're not an imposter. If you were lying, if you were trying to portray yourself as something you're not, Jeremy, that's imposter.
Yeah.
That's not what you're doing. So there has to be some self-assessment of what's really going on here, because I think that everybody's mental health has layers, right? It's just layer after layer. If the layer prior to imposter syndrome is your current emotion is self-loathing or that your self-worth is low, do you not think that that is going to foster that imposter syndrome in your head? It's the easiest way out. Yeah, I'm not good enough to do this. What makes me an SME on anything? What makes you an SME is you. You're not speaking on anybody else's life experiences. You're not speaking on some study that you didn't do. You're speaking about your goddamn life, bro. Like there is no imposter. There is no Jeremy Sanders. There isn't. Where else is there? You are you. So where is the imposter? That's something that we have cooked up in our heads to loathe ourselves, or if you want to use it to hold yourself accountable and use it in a positive way, be like, hey man, I might be stepping outside my realm or my scope of reality. Fine. But I think it's such a very dangerous thought process to think that there's anybody that can do you better than you.
Yeah.
And neither one of you guys are doing anybody other than you. So where the hell is the imposter syndrome? That's us. That's us trying to shoot ourselves out of the goddamn sky. That's what that is. That's the self-sabotage. That's all that other stuff. It's very easy for me, I've stopped classes mid-class because I thought, dude, there's so many guys that are on such higher levels. What the hell could I possibly bring to this? Well, I can bring the fact that I ran this call, and that gives me the experience to speak on this. It's the same exact process, right? Talking yourself up or talking yourself down. It's just what your perspective is at the moment. I am worthy, right? Your life experiences, you're not trying to teach something that you've never done before. That's why TRT is so mother loving impactful for me, because it's 10 or 12 dudes speaking as authentically as they possibly can with your second choice of words, vulnerability that I've never seen before. I don't think there's an ounce. I think imposter syndrome, if used in the correct framework, can help you stay humble, keep you in your lane. But other than that, it's just a very negative mindset for me, because it's just, I think there's multiple layers prior to that are affecting your sensation of feeling like you're an imposter. I think it's just a lack of self-worth at the moment or something else. I don't know if any of that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's definitely something that, I mean, it's just like anything else. I mean, if you lay it out like that and truly start to look at it for what it is, it's not true at all. It's just, it's the stories that we're telling ourselves. It's the comparisons that we're allowing to happen that we shouldn't. It's just stuff that we are allowing, and you just got to work through it. Absolutely.
Yeah. You just got to put up some defenses for that stuff, create that positive mindset, or that when you're feeling that, have a safe word for yourself. Be like, bro, pineapple, man, I'm going down that road. I'm starting to do some self-loathing, which we all know nothing good comes from that, or being hypercritical, right? That there's no benefit from being you can be critical of yourself, but if you start criticizing every single decision you make, that's just the birth of self-loathing, right? And then from there, imposter syndrome follows. I think there's a chain, a hierarchy there of emotions prior to really, embracing that imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Anything on that, Mark?
I want to honor both of you for who you are and the example you are to me. Not as firefighters, because I haven't ran the first call with you. I haven't spent 1 hour in the firehouse with either one of you. But your examples of godly men, fathers, husbands, brothers, for who you are. You both have impacted my life greatly. We've had a lot of discussion on authenticity and vulnerability. And to kind of throw it back into Eric Brenneman's realm, one last quote. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one."
No. Absolutely. I think that that's a pretty good place to wrap it up for sure. And I appreciate those words from you more than I could say. But for those listening, I hope there are a lot of people that have made it through this entire thing, because man, there's a lot of wisdom that was shared. There's a lot of just personal gold, I would say. And so I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you got a lot out of it. But there's a reason why I did this with these guys. Just like I said at first, these guys are not afraid to go there. And I am so happy, like Mark said, to have them in my life. We don't have to talk every day, like he said earlier, but we're always there when we're needed. And so I'm so thankful to have that. And just glad you both could make it on with me for sure. You got anything to wrap everything up? Last statements or anything, Tuna?
No, I'm not going to do my normal getting all teary-eyed and emotional. I just, I'm not going to beat a dead horse here. I don't really care what anybody else out there thinks about my relationship with you guys. I know where it is. I don't need to get TMJ on the air with you guys. You guys both know where you stand with me. And, I forgot what that movie was with Ben Affleck where he's and his buddy. He's like, listen, I got to ask you to do something. You can't ask me any questions. You need a car, or shovel, or whatever he says. And the guys, basically tell him they're going to go kill somebody. You can't ask questions. And his response was, what car are we taking? That's who I want to be for every one of my brothers. And you guys represent that for me. Just there's nothing that I withhold from you guys. And not a lot of dudes have that in their life. So Mark's 3 grateful things. I'm grateful for the 2 of you guys, my family, and this journey that I'm on. And you guys have, in the last 2 years, have become lieutenants and quartermasters on my ship. And I'm just very grateful to have you guys. I love both you guys very much. So thanks again, Jeremy. It was an absolute honor to be a part of your 200th. I appreciate it more than you'll ever know.
You bet. I'm glad that it happened, and I look forward to the next time, because outside of all the good content and the emotional nuggets, it's a lot of fun just to hear each of us kind of harass each other. So it was enjoyable. But that's all I got. I really appreciate your time out there listening, and hope that you got something that would add a little bit of value to your life, got something that would bring you to the point of some self-reflection, or just discussing something with those close to you. But until next time, like I've been saying, it doesn't matter what you come from, where you come from, great things can come from you. Thank you.